This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 449 of the Dressage Radio Show on the Horse Radio Network, brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products and Total Saddle Fit. Tonight, we are going to be joined by two of our listeners who have dressage questions that we will discuss. And of course, we have a great saddle fit tip about finding a dressage instructor.
This is Reese Koffler-Stanfield from Georgetown, Kentucky.
And this is Philip Parks from Rockwood, Ontario, and you're listening to the Dressage Radio Show. With our producer, Jen, we've got on. We've had a whole slew of producers lately.
I know. We've had everybody. I love it. Yeah. Well, we're recording a little early this week because on Thursday night, I'm going to see Glenn and meet Jemmy down here. I'm super excited to meet them. And I know Glenn, but I've never met Jemmy. So it'll be fun to meet them down here.
The Horse Radio Network goes on the road, I guess.
Yes, we're on the road. And everybody, just so you know, the Parathon has been postponed to a later date just to get everybody organized and all that good stuff. So we're not going to be doing that on Thursday like we talked about last week. So kind of keep your ears and eyes and ears open for more information. But I still get to hang out with Glenn. So I'm looking forward to that this week. So that's what's going on from here. Phil, how are you doing up there?
Doing all right. The deep cold is seemed to have subsided. So I rode all my horses today, and that was pretty awesome. Yeah, they're doing good. They're I think they're happy to do a little work. They get used to their little routine, and I think they're not so pleased when the routine gets broken. So I think that was good. We're working on a few things. Just trying to stay warm. What's going on in Florida?
Well, we're kind of the same way. It takes a good solid week to sort of get everything organized when you come down here with as many horses and dogs and people that we bring. But I think the last 2 days we've kind of been in the swing of things. Today we had a lot of rain, which I'm not complaining, but the arena sometimes floods here. Yeah. So you got to get a little creative, but we got everybody work today, which was good. And I mean, I'm not going to tell you the temperature because you'll be mad, but it was good. And we're just now kind of, there's a CDI this week. So it's the first one. So it'll be fun to see sort of all the horses. I like to see them at the beginning of the season and then again at the end and kind of compare how they do over the 8 weeks or 12 weeks of showing that they do. So not every horse shows every weekend, but it is fun to see them at the beginning of season and at the end. So that's what's going on this week. So we'll have a CDI. We'll be able to get back with you with some info on that. So looking forward to it. But we have our listener question show, which we always really, really like the show. So I hope everybody enjoys. And again, we're trying to do it once a month. So if you ever have a question and you want to come on the show, feel free to, you can either email Phil and I or Facebook us. We're easy to find if you want to. And we'd love to have you on the show. Or if you don't want to come on, we can always read the question too. So that's what we have going on, right, Phil?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I think we got a couple of pretty interesting questions, that we've sort of heard here and there before, and maybe we've covered similar topics, but it's always good to see if we can say the same thing in a different way sometimes, or connect with a question that we might have had 2 years ago or something. We've been doing this a while, so
3 months.
I think it's great. Yeah, I think it's great. And whenever we get our listeners involved, I'm really happy about that because I think that's what it's about, trying to create information that people are looking for rather than just putting stuff out and hoping some of it kind of catches people and we never really know. So we really love getting the feedback and to figure out how to make the show better. So this is some great topics and I can't wait to get to it. So I think right after this commercial, we will have our first guest, Carrie Wiley.
The sun is just peeking above the tree line as you walk into the barn. You grab your horse's halter off the hook and head out to the field. The dew shimmers in the sun as you walk across the damp grass. You call his name and his head comes up as he walks toward you, looking for the apple in your pocket. You take your time grooming, enjoying the peace and quiet in the empty barn. A refreshing breeze greets you as you start down the tree-lined path. Your horse ambles along on a loose rein as you both enjoy a relaxing ride. The feeling you get on an early morning hack is why we do what we do at Kentucky Performance Products. This feeling is brought to you by Microphase. Fill the nutritional gaps in your horse's diet. Microphase Vitamin and Mineral Supplement is a low-calorie way to provide your horse with the vitamins and minerals missing from their diet. The horse that matters to you matters to us.
Today for our listener question show, we are so excited to have Carrie Whaley on. She's calling from Aiken, South Carolina. Carrie, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Well, we are super excited. So why don't you go ahead and ask your question for Phil and I?
So my question was about trots. I was doing an exercise with a student. And, I'm a big fan of big trot, little trot. Show me that your horse is in front of your leg. Show me when you close your leg that your horse goes forward. Show me that you've got a half out with your seat, that sort of thing. So I got into a little bit of a detailed conversation with this particular student in discussing the trot. And I counted 7 trots that I could define to some extent in order to detail big trot, little trot a little bit more. And my question to you guys was, can you define a little bit better the difference specifically between medium, extended, and lengthened trot? But we also got into a conversation, involving the collected trot and the working trot, and what exactly is passage and piaffe, and the rhythm and tempo of all the different trots and the length of the frame and all that sort of thing. And I'd like to think I know the difference, but I guess more specifically, if you guys can define for everybody out there, what is the difference between a medium and extended and a lengthened trot? Those sort of all seem to blend together.
All right, I think we can tackle this. I think we can do our best. So first, the lengthened trot, because that occurs in first level, is just a developing phase towards a medium or extended trot. So you will, you sort of build it from your normal working trot. And some horses are really, really talented and will give you a really great lengthened trot and are talented for the extensions, and some are not. So that's why they sort of say lengthening. So just to keep it simple in first level, I think. So once you sort of do that and develop the horse a little bit further towards medium and extended, then the lengthened trot, you don't see it anymore in the test, and it doesn't really exist in the training. So I think lengthen is just kind of the best that your horse can do at that first level and creating a longer trot. It's a training phase. It's a developing thing. And then between medium and extended, so they're both kind of the biggest trot the horse can do. Medium is in the same frame as working trot, so big steps, same frame, and then extended would be in a longer, little bit more stretched out frame. And typically you would get an even bigger step for extended than you would for medium, but they're both just sort of maximizing the horse's trot. And then piaffe is a trot on the spot with no swing. So the tempo can be, it depends on the horse, but can be a little bit faster than what you get in passage, is covering as little ground as possible while the horse continues to swing. So it's all about airtime in that passage. So, I mean, again, horses with their talents, some will passage really well and not piaffe very well. That's where you see a horse more or less shuffle on the spot. It's not incorrect. It's just, the horse's abilities, I think, sometimes. And then some horses piaffe really well, where they really, pick up the diagonal pairs on the spot, and their passage, will not cover enough ground or have some issues. So, I mean, developing these trots, and this is why we don't cover a lot of piaffe passage on our show, because it all depends on the horse, and it can be very, very tricky, and every horse needs to be trained a little bit differently. So I think that sort of covered it. Reese, do you have anything that I kind of missed there?
No, I think that was actually a pretty good explanation on all of them. And I think as you ride and as your horse's level gets more and more cultured, if you want to say, or more advanced, sort of the ability to play within that range is incredibly important. And I think that's probably, what you were chatting with your student was, as you develop your trots and your ability to have, you start with the lengthening, and sometimes the lengthening starts with running
and shuffling,
shuffling and running, and then their horse gets a little bit stronger and they're able to carry themselves a little bit more, and that will develop into the medium trots and then into the extended trot. And as you're kind of giving the horse's culture, like I like to say, or just education, learning for them to be rounder and to be more through, and to all of these play into what will eventually become your Piaffe and Passage. And like Phil said, we don't cover a ton of it because, it's something that is a good thing to talk about and to learn, but can sometimes be misinterpreted. But, like Phil and I will play with Piaffe with youngsters. It's just Piaffe is just getting the horse to be quicker behind when you ask them to be a little bit quicker behind. And Passage, sometimes we just teach them how to bounce and play within that trot. And sometimes that can improve sort of the collected trot. So I just think as you ride and train and do, all of your tempo changes and all of your transitions, working within that is kind of the fun of developing a horse's trot. And that's how you can develop a trot more than you can develop a canter. You can make a horse trot better by teaching them all those sort of different gears. So that's sort of.
I think when I think about it and think about the question, there's not 7 defined trots. It's I don't think about it as just being, this is my extended trot, this is my medium trot, or Piaffe Passage. I always think about putting the horse, using a dial to pick it up a little bit or dial it down a little bit. While I'm riding a test, in front of a judge, I might really, feel really good about my horse and really go for an extended trot, like, push for maximum. I've got good balance, I got good rhythm. But if the horse is a little tight and tense, I'm going to dial that back again, so that I don't just say, click into an extended. I just think, okay, I'm going to continue to ride every step to think harmony, balance, and then go for the expression and go for, that thing. So it's, and while I'm training day to day, I got to know that I can push for as much as I want, or just take it down a notch and be able to use the dial a little bit. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. Do you have any more questions about the trot or what we're talking about here? If we could clarify a little better, Carrie.
I think that all makes sense. I think the biggest reason I use that exercise, the big trot, little trot specifically exercise, and why we got into the conversation was more that there needs to be an understanding that a little trot or a collected trot isn't just a slower trot, that you need to keep the energy going. And to try to explain what, Passage and Piaffe, there's still a ton of energy. You're just not covering the ground. So, when I try to do the exercise with students and say, okay, show me a little trot. Don't cover as much ground, but you need to keep the same energy in the little trot. It's not just slowing the trot down, and the lengthening or the extension or the medium. It's not just running your horse across the ground. I think that's just something that a lot of people struggle to understand, and I try very hard to be as clear as I can when I'm explaining what I need, what I want, what I'm looking for, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and I think yes, and I think it is hard for people to understand, and I always try to explain it that it's, basically as the horse is connected and round, you're basically making sort of a wheel of energy, right? So as you increase activity, the energy has to recycle back quicker from the hind leg through the rider to the horses to the bit, back around quicker. So, it's not running, right? Because running, the energy doesn't recycle back around. So, it is, and I try to explain it sort of like a piston of a car, right? That it gets quicker and it works faster, but it doesn't work. It doesn't make the horse run. So that's where you have to add in, as, yes, it's an extended canter, but the horse is still in contact. And that's where sort of the contact and the half vaulting has to also play into the understanding of what it is, right? Because or a piaffe, right? The piaffe has a tremendous amount of energy, tremendous. It's just not it's not covering ground. While an extended canter also has a tremendous amount of energy, but it's covering the ground. Same with the extended trot. So it's actually, piaffe is basically theoretically not extended trot on the spot, but a very, very active trot on the spot, if that makes sense. So, it's all about sort of, the horse can only have so much energy, can only create so much. It's just how quickly are you getting it to recycle back to the hind leg to come back out again. So that's always helpful for me to think of it that way. But it is, that's
it's just not always easy to sort of explain.
No, it's hard, right?
To make it clear to try to get people to understand. I had a trainer in the past that referred to the sort of slow trot exercises. Think of it as the poor man's passage. You try to keep the energy, and I always thought that was sort of a neat way to think about it. You try to keep the energy, but you're just not covering quite as much ground. But again, trying to explain, it's not running, it's not slowing down, it's keeping all of that energy. It's just putting it in a different form.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
No, you're right. Absolutely.
Shaping it. Yeah. Shaping your trots
exactly.
and always pushing, never pulling. And I think we could talk a little bit about, because we had some more questions about trot on the, when we threw it out there to our auditors and our listeners, about how do you stop a horse from rushing, or how do I get the hind leg to work a little bit better. I think, by default, you should, always be pushing forward and then see what you can do from there. And so when you're trying to, make your first steps of lengthening, or you're trying to train your horse towards first level, you want to go to first level show, make sure you can push the horse, even if they get faster, and that they start to make more contact onto the bit. That is the most important piece of the puzzle, because if you just throw your hands forward and kick the horse forward, there's no increase of that bridge over the horse's back and to make the back rounder. And from there, you have to be able to control the steps. So the first, with my young guys and whatever, I actually, when I push them forward for more trot, I gently and carefully, but I take on the bit so that they get the idea that they have to connect better. That's the whole way to be able to make the trot or canter or walk bigger and smaller, is by increasing that amount of pushing the hind legs and then taking a hold of the bit so that they connect and they can lift their back, and that's how to make the steps longer. The steps will never get longer if you don't increase that connection. So if you have to do it, by taking your hands backwards, or teaching the horse to push or pull on the bit to make more contact, that's the really important piece of this puzzle. And so, if you just push and the horse gets hollow or curls up and tucks behind the bit, then you've got other problems to think about. And then I sort of, if that's the problem, if they get behind the bit a little bit, I just keep pushing, and hopefully that will, the horse will learn what it means to make more contact and to push more energy through. And then from there, you can make the steps smaller and bigger, if you continue to train and work at it. But it's a very tricky thing and a very tricky concept to learn to do that. So most people don't like it when the horse pulls on the bit a little bit. They think that's wrong, and when there's an increase of contact, they might pull on their arms or their shoulders a little bit, and riders tend not to like that. But you need that sort of concept to make it all work and to be connected.
Sure, I think there's a lack of understanding though for that as well, that an increased contact doesn't necessarily mean that your horse is pulling either.
Right.
So I think that's a hard thing to define to somebody who's, unclear on that as well. Increased contact isn't always a bad thing. Increased contact doesn't always mean pulling. So, that's another thing that's a bit of a struggle to explain until somebody understands the field a little bit better as well.
So Carrie, tell us a little bit about, how you've kind of been training your students, right? You're riding a Grand Prix horse right now. So it's easy. It's much easier when the horses have all the gears to explain it to someone. So give us a little perspective.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm an event rider by profession, and I live very close to Finger Lakes Racetrack. And most of my business is pulling racehorses off the track, retraining them. Most of them decide they want to be event horses. They certainly can be anything, but I specialize in event horses and do quite a bit of that, and do a bunch of other things as well. I do combined driving, and the super short version is I sold my little combined driving horse and sort of fell upon this Grand Prix horse. And so now I have a Grand Prix horse in my barn, and I had an event horse that wasn't off the track though, but it absolutely hated dressage. So I made sort of a goal and started going to more and more dressage shows to help this particular horse out. And the more I did with him, the better, of course, he got, and the better he got in his other phases of eventing as well. And I actually ended up getting a bronze medal on him, which was completely by mistake. Did not understand anything about the medals, and that was back in the day when you didn't have to apply for them or anything. It just kind of showed up in the mail. And ended up actually taking that thoroughbred through Prix St. George on my own, not really knowing as much as I should have known to get to that level. And as much as we all like to pretend that the eventing dressage is exactly the same thing as the quote unquote real dressage, it's really not. That's a whole other debate for
another show.
But anyway, so I fell upon this Grand Prix horse and started doing. So I had two Prix St. George horses at the same time. So when I got the Grand Prix horse, it started him at fourth just to sort of get to know him, and then moved him up to Prix St. George, and was doing him in a thoroughbred and a Prix St. George. And then it was remarkable to me how different the dressage horse was than the event horse. And again, that's a whole other debate. But what the Grand Prix horse taught me was so incredibly valuable for the event horses, and the technique and the refinement or the detail. I guess I'm not exactly sure what the right adjective is, but as far as the upper level dressage kept progressing. So now I've got my gold medal, and I'm doing the Grand Prix on the Grand Prix horse, which is new to me. I've done 7 Grand Prix with him now. We just moved down to Aiken, so I'll keep going with Silva Martin down here, and James Savoy's been helping me quite a bit with him. And Michael Barrasone and his sister Susan Barrasone lives in my neighborhood, so she helps me quite a bit as well. But it's been very enlightening for my students to see me riding the Grand Prix horse and practicing my passage and tee off, and having them being able to see the energy that's in the tee off and say, okay, look at this. This is the epitome of flow trot, right? I'm trotting in place. I'm not covering any ground. So when I talk to you guys about doing the big trot, little trot exercise in your lessons, this is sort of as little trot as a little trot can get. But notice how much energy is in this trot, and I can take this tee off and I can make this tee off into an extended trot, and there's a phenomenal amount of energy in that extended trot too. So it's so enlightening for them to be able to see how you can keep the energy in that trot, cover no ground, cover a ton of ground, cover medium ground, do whatever you need to do in adjusting that trot. And it's so much nicer for me as an instructor to be able to say, okay, look, watch me sit on this horse, watch what I can change, watch how the energy doesn't change, but watch how I can cover more ground or cover less ground. And it's just so much easier to explain by showing them, giving them an example, than it is to stand on the ground in the middle of the arena and go, no, look, understand. You need to understand this and try to explain it. But for them to be able to see it is, I'm a very visual learner, so I'm a very visual instructor, and I think for my students and to be able to see that has been really valuable. So I think that that's been really helpful to me, not only as an instructor, But as a rider, to be able to feel that, to be able to show it to my students, to be able to demonstrate it so they can get a little bit better of an understanding as to what I'm asking for when I say big trot, little trot, if that makes sense.
Sure. No, that makes total sense. Oh, I love it. Well, Carrie, thanks so much for coming on the show. We're so glad that you're a listener, but also that you are helping and with us and figuring out some questions. So you're a trainer as well. So if people are in Aiken or looking for an eventing trainer or someone that also does dressage, how can they get in touch with you?
I have a website, Whaley Farms, WEHLE.com, and a Facebook page, which is kept pretty well up to date. And we're down in Aiken for the winter. And it has finally gotten warm down here, and we are out of upstate New York, and there's no snow around, and it is phenomenal. So
awesome. Yeah, I hear you, girl.
And easy to find. So yeah, no worries there. So it's good. We're staying warm and keeping happy, and going to get all these horses cleaned up and clipped and out competing for the year and to start the season. So that'll be fun.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on the show, and we look forward to keeping in touch with you.
Super. Thanks for having me. Best wishes to everybody.
Well, I really liked hearing from Carrie. That was a great question. You can tell, she's a trainer, so you get 3 trainers together, and it's just a fun conversation always. So we love doing that. So our next guest, she's going to tell us a little bit about her mare and some of the tricky things she's having going on right now. Well, tonight we have another listener calling for our listener question show. We have Courtney Teets on. Courtney, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
We are excited. So, Courtney, tell us a little bit about yourself and then tell us your question, and we'll see if we can handle it.
Yeah, so I own like a retraining type program, and I was recently given a really nice warm blood mare. Possibly really nice warm blood mare. She had 2 years off before I got her. And before that, she just had kind of sketchy training. Her previous owner ended up kind of being terrified of her. So she was given to me. I've had her since October. For the most part, we just did lunging for a little while, but now we're starting to ride. And now we've come into the problem where her gaps in her training are coming in, and the bad training that she had is showing up. And it's pretty evident that I think she was ridden incorrectly in draw reins. And while I've dealt with this before, she's just a little bit different. So I'm not sure how to deal with it. So a lot of the issue that we have is she will tuck her nose into her chest, of course. And the only way to slow her down, she doesn't listen to your seat, is to use more rein, which just makes her shove her nose more into her chest. So we're kind of stuck in the act of how to teach her to stretch out and lengthen. She's a big ball of just tension all the time. I've ruled out pain. There's nothing wrong with her. She just is so stuck inside of herself, and she can't get out of that ball frame. She won't stretch out. She won't let her nose relax or anything. And I'm stuck. I can't for the life of me figure out what to do.
All right. I guess my first question is, what kind of bit is she in?
I've had her in a couple different ones, trying to figure out different things. One of them that I had her in was a single jointed D-ring snaffle, just smooth plain. And then I put her in an egg butt French link. That made no difference with that. For the most part, though, it's just simple snaffles, be it a French link or just a single jointed.
Yeah. So my favorite is the egg butt double jointed. So a French link. If the French link doesn't work, try something with a little bit thicker. So you can go thicker and thinner bits too. Horses have preference. Happy mouth bits, even just a straight bar happy mouth. You got to find the best bit that's going to work with the horse, and that's the best way, I think, to start. Really dealing with the tack first. So, some horses are super sensitive, and some, just prefer a certain kind of bit. So that's the easiest way to solve, or at least help improve, a training problem. Just keep working with different bits. I know you may have tried 3 or 4, but just keep trying different ones until you've sort of exhausted all options. I think that's the best way to kind of figure that out. And then the next thing, and to deal with the training, is that these types of horses, you can't really expect them to stretch a whole lot right away. I think that can be a huge challenge. So what I try and focus on is just trying to get the horse in front of the vertical. Let them carry the head as low or as high as they want, but to get the nose stretched out and to open up the angle between the horse's jaw and its neck and try and see where you can go from there. You might have to ride that horse for 8 months, just a little up and out. But I think that's the most important thing, to try and get the horse to be comfortable with, making themselves as long as possible over the top line before you even start to stretch the top line. And if you have a problem with the horse not wanting to stop, like you said, pulling and then pulling more doesn't really work. So, I like to use like really quick movements with my hand, like to say, okay, you have to bring a little contact to slow the horse down or to bring it into the lower gait, whether you're cantering and you want to trot or whatever, and to just use a really quick kind of touch on the bit, but release like right away, like really right away, that there is not even for 2 seconds contact that is holding and pulling backwards, to say you have to walk now, or you have to halt now, but really use a quick moment, give, and if the horse doesn't halt, it's fine, and do it again and give and do it again and give until the horse understands that they have to, when they feel a little bit of that contact, that they have to come to the lower gate as soon as possible, so you don't get into the trap of pulling and pulling more and then the horse coming behind the bit. So you really, I think it's about riding the horse out to the bit at all times, and really just not allowing this horse ever to take its nose behind the vertical, no matter how high or low the head is. Reese, any thoughts on that? I know it's kind of tricky.
Yeah, it's tricky, especially when you don't see it. But I think, Phil, your approach with the bit, I think you do have to find the right bit. I think that's important. And I just wanted to make a note, and it's maybe not popular on my end, but so many people use draw reins incorrectly, and I think draw reins have a bad rap because of that. But draw reins themselves, actually in German, they translate to being called helping reins. So there are good applications for draw reins if you know how to use them properly. So I like to throw that out there because I think so many people think draw reins are the worst thing on the planet. They're not, but they don't need to be used for connection, right? Draw reins can be used if you're having trouble like teaching a horse a flying change, and they're throwing their head and they're running. There's certain things that I just wanted to say that because I think they have a bad rap a little bit. But in your case, again, they're being used for connection, right? And that's a bad thing. That's not something that they should be used for. So that may be an unpopular statement, but I do want to say that. So a couple things with your horse. I totally agree with Philip. Like, contact should in some ways be taken out of the conversation. And, whenever I get a problem or I see something that happens, I go back to what are the basics. All right. So if you go back to your scale of training, you've got rhythm with energy and tempo, and relaxation with elasticity and suppleness before contact on the scale of training or pyramid of training that we use. So I would say first go back and, can you trot in rhythm? Not with contact, but can you trot in rhythm? Can you do bending lines without necessarily getting the horse on the bit per se, but just that the horse learns, again, that there's a connection from the hind leg to the bit, if that makes sense, and that the horse learns to seek the contact. So those would be, sort of the exercises just from a high level. And again, I think with a horse that has that sort of baggage, if you want to say it that way, that they're too round up front, the last thing you want to do is be pulling on the reins. So that's kind of a
right.
And saying, oh, you have to be into a contact. For me, I would really want that horse to learn how to seek the contact and do it that way. So I hope that makes sense. And certainly without seeing it, that would be what I would do. But I do really like maybe you need to find a little bit of a softer bit that horse is a little bit more comfortable with as well.
Yeah, I have a plethora of bits, so I'll definitely be trying many, many more.
Well,
sometimes you think like, oh, this bit wouldn't work, and then all of a sudden it works. Like, it doesn't always it isn't logical, or sometimes it doesn't make sense. So that's why I just keep trying different things. And And again, I like that Reese said, like, it doesn't matter if the horse is quote unquote on the bit right now. He just needs to be relaxed, then lots of sugar treats and stuff, because it sounds like this horse is not very trusting at all. There's no relationship or partnership going on. So you have to spend, I usually tell people, a year just creating a partnership before you can do any dressage. So let the horse be a little, if it wants to be really above the bit, let it be above the bit, and just, just try and release with your hands.
Trot.
And
it has to move right to the
it has
right.
to go.
Has to go. Yeah.
I think the go is not a problem with this one, maybe, but probably
go
the stop.
is not a problem.
Yeah. So
Stopping is the problem.
Stop is the problem. Yeah.
So it's about trust. It's about relaxation. So I wouldn't be doing a whole lot of dressage, even exercise, like do a whole lot of hacking, do a whole lot of other stuff so that you can really get that horse to trust you and to put it in different situations, and that, you form a bit of a partnership that it likes people, that the horse is happy to kind of go along, and what you're trying to create is a better mind that you can start to work with than really worrying about the physical issues and the on the bit stretching problems. Those you can't tackle those problems if you have zero trust and zero relaxation. So, get out of the arena, or get sort of the traditional dressage exercises out of your head until you have safety and trust and some of those concepts really down first, so that no matter what you do when you're training, the horse will trust you and will sort of relax and accept the aids. Yeah, you got a bit of a project on your hands, it sounds like.
Yeah, but a lot of times those projects are the best, right? Well, right. But a lot of times that's how you get the nice horse, right? That because after the time and getting the horse, once you have a horse like that trusts you, truly, those are going to be your best horses, I think, at the end of the day. If you can sort of figure it out, which means you got to try a lot of stuff. But if you can figure it out, I bet you at the end of a year, you're going to call us back and say, I have a phenomenal horse in my hands.
Yeah, we're going to check in on this one, I think.
I hope so.
Yes, we want to check in with you.
It's very interesting for sure.
That's awesome. Well, we look forward to it. Keep us in the loop. Let us know how it goes, because I'm sure everyone's going to want an update in a couple months. So keep us in the loop, and we wish you all the best. And thanks for calling in,
guys. Thank you guys so much.
This week's dressage training tip is brought to you by Total Saddle Fit, home of the shoulder relief girth at TotalSaddleFit.com.
So, Phil, for our Total Saddle Fit tip of the week, we're going to talk, a little bit about the Stretch Tech shoulder relief girth, which I really like this girth personally with horses that are girthy. I have had a ton of success with this girth, and I had a situation recently with my youngster. He was getting kind of girthy, and I thought, oh, he's got ulcers, and he didn't. He really was actually getting sore under where the girth was placed, and it's just more because he was having to lift his stomach. He was having to engage a little bit more, and I've had other horses around his stage get sore, and so I switched him. He was in the regular shoulder relief girth, which works really well, but I switched him to this Stretch Tech. Problem solved. So that was really cool, and I don't know if it's was him just age and stage, but this is a great girth if you ever have sort of that kind of issue. And it's built with a unique triangular elastic in the center of the girth that expands for the horse, which I really think that really helped this youngster. So I love this girth. I use it a ton. Phil, tell us a little bit about your experience.
Well, I just think like you see a lot of girths with elastic on each end. I think that's the traditional way of doing it. But I think with the elastic through the middle, and it's if you look on the photos, you can see that the girth is allowed to expand around the horse's chest, sort of sternum area, and I think that works a lot better than having the girth elastic points up where you kind of do it up, because where you do it up, that makes it easier for the rider to kind of crank that girth real tight. But that again, you end up with maybe a girth that's very restrictive through the chest for the breathing, and then that doesn't really, your girth is easy to do up, but it doesn't really help the horse to breathe better, to expand. And, I see a lot of horses, I go into barns and I'm teaching lessons, and I see the horses, kind of putting the ears back and, a little bit biting towards the rider. I think this girth can solve that problem. Like if your horse is showing any discomfort whatsoever, this girth is worth a try, right? If you're thinking your horse is going to be ridden 5 days a week or so, that, every day, then they have to wear this tack. I think if you can make them more comfortable, do it, right? Because, and these products are not on the high end of expensive. So I think your horse could thank you, and your riding could go better, and they could be, less cranky, to tack up. So I think that's worth doing, and just try it out.
Yep, I love it. Well, Phil, we've got another listener question for our Total Saddle Fit tip of the week. Tell us a little bit. What's the question?
Well, I think the question is pretty simple. I think one of our listeners has asked, what should she or he be looking for in a beginner type dressage instructor? How to find a good instructor. What are some things that you think that someone should be looking for?
Yeah, I think this is a really good question. I think because a lot of it is dependent on the area that you live in. And it's hard sometimes, if there's really one or two choices, it's difficult. But the one thing I would say is when you're looking for an instructor, and I'm not sure about Canada, but in the US, we do have the instructor certification program. So you can look on the USCF website, and that is a great place to start for a dressage instructor. Not all trainers are certified, but it is a really good place to start, and it means that the instructor has gone through the training that's necessary to become certified. So that would be the first thing I would do. The second thing I would do is, obviously look at your local group member organization and see what trainers are there, and talk to a bunch of people in the area about who they are. Some other resources, Pony Club has also a program that certifies facilities and instructors. I think that's a good way to go if you don't know and you're moving to an area. Is there a pony club in the area? I also think, there are other certifications sort of worldwide. The British Horse Society certification is a very good certification. It's difficult to pass it. So that would be the first thing I would do always if you're moving or looking for another instructor. See if they have, what credentials they have to be teaching. I think that's important. Not always, not everybody is certified or has those credentials, or they don't need them, or however, but I think that's a place to start. So that would be the first thing I would do. And then, in your area, go hook up with, I always say the tack shop owner. They always know, who's around and what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. Who's got good reputation? Who
doesn't? And you want to look for the reputation for good quality. And I think it's important, especially with youngsters, that you find somebody with a good reputation. That's important. And I say the USDF certification because we do also have to get some other training. We have to take the Safe Sport program, which is through the U.S. Olympic Committee, I think. With all instructors have to take that. So there's some other things that you are doing and extra training. So that would be where I would start. Phil, do you have anything to add to that?
I think that's a great tip. And I think we've said this before, but just because someone is a great instructor doesn't mean they're a great instructor for you. So, I mean, the best, if you're just starting out in the sport, just, hook up with a trainer, try them out, try out 3 different trainers, figure out what works for your price point, and then, make a decision later. I think it's okay. Like, I never have a problem if any one of my students wants to be taught by someone else, or I never have a problem with that. So I think it's good to be getting different perspectives, and even going to an eventing trainer. I mean, there's no problem. All the basics are pretty much the same. So it's not that you need, if you want to try dressage, to need dressage specific only instructor. I mean, lots of people do a wonderful job of teaching basic riding skills and going through the process of learning how to ride and learning how to ride correctly. So I think that's all the tips that I can think about at this moment.
Yeah, me too. Well, everybody, we hope you enjoyed our tip show this week. Everyone always has been, people have been asking for it. And again, if you have questions you want Phil and I to answer, we will always try. And if we don't know the answer, we will find somebody that does. So as always, you can find our show notes and links to today's guest on our website, dressageradio.com. Like us on Facebook, just search Dressage Radio Show. Follow us on Twitter at Horse Radio. My website is maplecrestfarmky.com, and my email is reese@horseradionetwork.com.
I think the best way to find me is on Facebook, or my email is philip@horseradionetwork.com. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week for allowing us to put on a show. And don't forget to check out all the other shows on the Horse Radio Network at horseradionetwork.com.
Everybody, keep your heels down and your shoulders back, and we'll talk to you next week.